Welcome, beautiful community. This is another incredible interview in our series, Overcoming Overwhelm, a nervous system approach to health, wellness, and success. And today I'm joined by a really incredible practitioner, Lesha Nelson. She has a wide variety of ways and modalities that she uses to work with the nervous system, with specializing in a lot of early life traumas, birth trauma, attachment trauma, developmental trauma. She is a somatic practitioner, an advanced craniosacral therapist, occupational therapist, and integral facilitator. She guides you to repattern your nervous system from dysregulation, childhood conditioning, and insecure attachment patterns to a place of connection in all of your relationships. Having spent over a decade studying trauma, meditation, stress responses in the body, embodiment, psychosomatic, the womb and birth work, she works with women and children to feel more at home in their bodies and rebuild resilience. This is so amazing. She's built 2 businesses from the ground up, a busy craniosacral therapy practice, addressing care for both moms and newborns, as well as an online coaching business where she focuses on nervous system regulation, womb healing, attachment patterns, and birthing blueprints. Lesha, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on today.
Yeah, and with this breadth of knowledge and the work that you do, it's almost difficult to kind of, where do we even start? There's so much good stuff, but I think the one thing that, really underlies it all is our nervous systems. And I'm curious, and I'm asking you, the other people that are participating in the series, for me, I did not know. I had some sense like, oh, the nervous system plays into this, I'm sure, but it wasn't until I really dove into understanding the nervous system and how to regulate it and how it functions and all of those pieces that I really understood that you can't overcome anything, not emotional eating, not old patterns, not any issues within the body or within the mind without the healthy foundation of a nervous system. So I realized that as I began my career, and then I took to the study and incorporated it. So I'm curious, for you, with so much of an emphasis on the nervous system, did you start from the beginning with this important understanding, or was it something that kind of came as you worked with people and noticed what was going on?
For me, I think it was a little bit of both.
Mm.
From my background in becoming an occupational therapy, I took a neuroscience course at a master's level, understanding anatomy and the neuroscience itself.
Yeah.
I then spent years working in an inpatient neurorehabilitation center where I was working with people with spinal cord injury, head injury, people that had had life-changing events that literally was addressing the nervous system and their bodies and working with them on a very physical level with their nervous system. And so that gave me a very good understanding of neuroscience, the brain, how the body functions. And then I discovered craniosacral therapy, which is more of a holistic modality.
Yeah. And for
And
anybody who doesn't understand or know necessarily what that is, would you give us just the tiny version of, so we can understand that?
yeah, so it's a hands-on. I'm putting my hands on people. It's a form of body work. It's lighter touch. The concept being that we all have cerebral spinal fluid, which is fluid in our brain and spinal cord. It gives it this, it's the cushion for our brain. And it has a pulse rate, just like our heart and our breath. And we work with the pulse rate to find restrictions within the nervous system. So if the pulse rate is off somewhere, or if the body has a muscle restriction, or if there's a fascial, which is like that connective tissue,
Mhm.
if that's disconnected somewhere, it's putting stress into the nervous system itself.
Yes.
So we work with the brain and the spinal cord, the fascia, the body,
Mhm.
so that the nervous system can then relax. And from that relaxed space, when we're not in overwhelm, our bodies can actually be self-healing.
Yeah.
Not to say that we live forever, because we still have aging.
Sure. But it's much different. Yeah.
Much different. But when I was introduced to craniosacral and really went down that road, I also started to have people start to have emotional releases on my table and having these emotional things. So I was working with the nervous system. Then there started to be this emotional component. Didn't understand what was happening.
Yeah.
I knew something important was happening, so I decided to have further training. And that's what led me into the trauma-informed care and the trauma work, and really understanding how the nervous system is the foundation. And then it brings in this emotional component, and that we have to address both.
Yes, addressing them both. That's so important. Yes. So you really did get, you started with essentially with the nervous system, but then you understood how it layers and how everything else that you want to do needed to kind of be funneled through that. Awesome. I love that.
Yeah. And I would say at the hospital level, and when I was working as an occupational therapist, they weren't necessarily addressing the trauma, which
Right.
is so interesting because it was a lot of trauma was happening, but we weren't specifically trained how to work with trauma. We aren't, say, like psychotherapists.
Mhm.
So that's why I decided to seek out more resources and more training, because of the element of trauma that was coming in.
Yeah, yeah. And I think in our day and age, anybody who wants to be, helpful to people, regardless of what the, type of therapy is that you're applying, to take the time to become trauma informed. Because, probably, I don't know what your research would tell you, but from what I've seen, well over 90% of us have experienced some sort of trauma in our lives. And that's something that I think we really need as practitioners and people who, want to help people. We really need to help people understand that you did have some kind of trauma. And the definition that we've, been used to for so long, living in a war zone, being, a victim of violent crime or abuse, these kinds of things, of course, they can be traumatic and most often are, but it also includes so many other, what you might consider small, but there's no real gauge to say, oh, yep, that qualifies. Nope, that doesn't qualify, right? Because it's so individual. I would love to hear from your perspective, especially because you have such a vast experience with, those traumas that can occur in birth and in those very, very early years, where we have no idea that they, have implications that stretch into the rest of our lives.
Yes, very much so. And so I always, two things there. I look at things as big T trauma and little t trauma. So that's one thing that people might have heard before. It's kind of floating around in the trauma informed communities. The big T trauma is the war. Those are those big events, excuse me, head injuries, car accidents, where it's like there's a large event that's very obvious that happens.
Mhm.
And a birth trauma that's very much an epidemic in our country right now. And then we have little t trauma, which are the little things. And we have shown, depending on your resiliency level and on your nervous system, how those little t traumas can affect some people more than others. And so that would be like bullying. If you're
Yeah.
getting bullied every day, you're experiencing stress into the nervous system over and over and over again. And so that adds up and can have the same effects as a big T trauma.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of trauma to keep in mind. That was my situation, my case. If you hear my story, it's like, yeah, I had a house. I was very I was very loved by my parents. There wasn't a giant big T trauma, but there was a lot of neglect going on in my household. And so over time, research has shown neglect can be just as detrimental as these big T
If
traumas,
not more,
if
because
not more.
sometimes with the big, it's like obvious, like, oh, this person needs support. This person needs, I understand why she's not able to concentrate, or, is having these health conditions or whatever. But with these, little t, or what you say, just accumulated traumas, it's sometimes, it's not obvious that the person needs help in that regard, with that specific type of treatment in mind. And so, and also because the way we treat trauma in society, I think so many people are hesitant to even acknowledge that they've had it. They feel like, well, this person over here, well, this person, I had it, I had it pretty good. Nobody was, beating me up every day or whatever it was. And that's just not the point.
No, no. And that kind of brings us to your second question of, and I don't remember exactly what you asked, but it's this idea that it's basically, how does our nervous system respond? What's happening at a nervous system level? And there's a concept I'm really passionate about and talk a lot about called interoception. And essentially, that's our body's ability to recognize and notice our internal states, like what's happening on the inside. And that's shaped by what's called our implicit memory.
Mm-hmm.
So implicit memory are the things that happen to us. They're unconscious and they're acquired through experiences.
Yeah.
But it's not like, okay, I'm going to go take this test and I'm going to go study and I'm going to go memorize these things. It's the opposite of that. It's that we have an experience and unconsciously we store that experience in our internal state. And that's how our interoception is formed.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know that when we're the most stressed is actually when we store the most information.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So if there's
See that with PTSD, right? It's like whatever is accompanying that strong emotion, that sense of danger, it's going to get wired in to protect us.
Totally. So if that threat is a large threat for your system, we can use, I work a lot with children, and let's say there's like a disattachment going on between mom and baby. Let's say mom is not attuning to baby or to child for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
The baby or the child sees that as a threat, and that becomes an implicit memory.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go on to live our lives. And then say I meet someone, let's say this person was me, that say they're scent, because it's all through senses, or say a woman says something that might remind me of my mother. And what happens with my nervous system is I automatically go into the same response. I start to have that internal activation or awareness of a complete stranger that is subconsciously reminding me of my mother that I might have had a disconnection with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then my nervous system is doing one of two things. It's either becoming hypervigilant and very active and very anxious, or I'm starting to go into shutdown, into freeze, and to collapse and disassociation, depending on what creates safety for me in that state.
Yeah.
So that's why I work so much with interoception with the nervous system, is what is actually going on in our body? What is actually happening in the present moment? This woman that's reminding me of my mother isn't actually my mother. It's that I'm projecting that, and that implicit memory is creating that in my body. And if I can become aware of that actually I can start to realize, oh, that's actually what's not happening right now in the present moment. And I can start to work with my body with that.
Yeah. Bring safety back to your body. Have an experience of safety, even though the brain is saying something's not safe, creating that safety for yourself. Yeah. And for anyone who may not be aware, we talk about attachment, we talk about attunement, and these are really important issues to understanding how our nervous system developed. But maybe we should give just a touch of background on attunement and attachment, just for anybody who's maybe not familiar with those terms.
Sure. So I studied attachment through Diane Poole Heller. I like to
Oh,
name
I
the
love
teacher.
that. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she's great. Her program is called Dare, and I chose that program because it had a somatic perspective, a body perspective. She works with the body in relationship to attachment. And, there's attachment theory that we all have different styles of attachment. And I always like to name to the moms out there, because as soon as I start talking about attachment, they're like, oh my God, I'm screwing up my baby. I'm doing things all wrong. And that's not the case.
Not the case. Yeah.
So attunement is really attunement or co-regulation is how connected are you to your child? How much relationship is going on in this relational field? Are you attuned to their emotions and to their needs?
Mhm.
We all know that all babies and all children have very different needs. They just are born differently and they come with different nervous systems. And so, how much can we attune to them? And research shows we really only, for a child to be successful and an independent adult in the world, we need 30% attunement. So you're not screwing up your children. Most people can do 30% attunement.
Right, right.
So in attachment theory and in attachment relationship, that's that bond that's taking place the first year of life is some of the most important
Yeah.
that's happening for baby and mom, and say whatever the triad is, maybe it's a dyad, but whether it's, that they have support, a supportive safe haven.
Yeah.
And when the baby are in the tuned and they're in that safety, their implicit memory, because that's all they have, can develop into a healthy nervous system.
Yeah, a sense of safety, sense of well-being. And, I think of attunement as kind of, it's consistently meeting the needs most of the time,
Yeah.
and it's things in the past, and it's kind of cringy to even think about, but those decades where mothers were told, let their babies cry at night so that they could learn to retrain, train themselves. And really what they were trained was, hey, nobody's coming for you.
So shut down.
So shut down, exactly. Ignore what's happening for you because there's no other choice. No one is there. So you need to deal with it. And what tools do I have to deal with it other than shutting down the needs and the awareness? And I love that you bring that up and how important it is when we're dysregulated, we're not able to be with the sensations of the body. That's kind of the point. Like it's not safe to be with what's going on. And we learn that very early on. And that is, so directly correlated to my work with people who are challenged with emotional eating, because the food is where we go in order to avoid the internal experience. So we can see how similar, all of the nervous system work is. It's really about coming back home and being able to be present and feel and experience what's happening in the body. And it has implications for, of course, now I don't need to go to the food because I feel safe. I'm dealing with, my internal world. It has implications for, our thought patterns, our belief systems, how we're going to go forward in the world and be able to, parent our own children and be in relationships. I love that a lot of your work focuses on that as well. So many different avenues that this interoception, plays into.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If we're not connected to that, we just have a difficult time to manage our emotions. Just physically, we have a difficult time managing our sensations. And then we're just really not in that present moment, present time.
Yeah. Yeah. We can't heal, right? We can't achieve the things that we were meant to do. We can't express our gifts and find that joy and that sense of well-being.
Yeah.
So I think we've done a good job of laying out the importance of the nervous system and of being able to be present, and also the importance of understanding that our early experiences, or the traumas can certainly happen later in life too, but the importance of those events and how they may have impacted our nervous system. So being open to looking at those and willing to broaden the definition of what trauma means. So now I hope there are a lot of people who have on their mind, oh, okay, what do I do? I don't know how to do that. If you've never experienced it and don't have tools, how on earth can we start to relate differently to our internal experience?
Yeah. So, my doorway in was meditation. That's what worked for me. And I know there's a lot of people that it does work for them, and other people say that it doesn't work for them.
Yeah.
That is what really started to help me to understand how to start to connect with my body, how to be with my body.
Yeah.
And so I always recommend, if you can and if you're willing, just starting to sit in some quiet time. The phone's away,
Yeah.
you're not being disturbed, and you're essentially just with your breath, paying attention to the sensations of your body. And you can start with 5 minutes. just
Like
5
you
minutes.
should. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Just noticing your breath and starting to notice your sensations. And when I work with people with this, I'll be like, what are you noticing in your body? What's happening? And they'll label it with an emotion, which is fine.
Mhm.
So they'll say, "Oh, I'm feeling joy right now." And so then my next question to people is, well, let's go deeper. What are the sensations of joy in your body?
Yeah. Yeah. How do you know that's true?
So yeah, how do you know? And so it literally is about just creating curiosity. And I mean, your listeners can do it right now, people watching this. It's like, if I stop and just take a moment and notice the sensations in my body, it's like, okay, there's a tightness in my left low back. And I'm not saying, is it good? Is it bad? I'm not giving it an emotion. I'm just labeling it like,
Mhm.
oh, there's some tightness. Okay, and what else do I notice? I'm noticing my mouth's a little dry. It kind of feels gritty. And the more that we can actually use descriptor words like tingly, gritty, warm,
Yeah.
the better it actually can be for our body.
Hmm.
Start to create that awareness of the sensory experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 5 minutes a day of like, what are the sensations in my body right now? And to be with them.
Hmm.
We don't need to change them. We don't need to label them. We're literally just recognizing them and
Yeah.
allowing them to be there.
Yeah, I love that. I actually have a meditation practice that is centered around this for as a foundational piece in my program. It's literally 4 minutes and something long because people say, I don't want to be in my body. I don't want to. When I even entertain the idea of being present in my body, I get anxiety and want to run away, and to know like that's perfectly normal and that's
Mhm.
okay. And if that is you, start with 15 seconds.
Mhm.
Start with 30 seconds. And there are other practices. So, a lot of people will say, well, I tried meditation and it doesn't work for me. But what you're talking about is actually not the kind of thing where we just sit and try to go blank, right? It's actually the opposite. And there is something to do in it. And it
Mhm.
is focusing, and if it helps to go through the body, what's happening in my head, what's happening in my shoulders. And so I just, encourage people to hear this in a little bit different way, maybe not just immediately say, oh, meditation, not for me. No, I can't do that. This is a very specific, I like to think of it like creating a meeting space, for your body and for your sensations. And I love this. And I love that you are also saying, the same thing. Start as small as you need to,
Mhm.
because trying to push, right? That's how so many of us got into the space that we're in already. So don't use that same framework for trying to get out. It's just the gentle space.
Starting small. And I will find that most people that are like, nope, nope, I'm not going there,
Yeah.
is that it's more the fear of the emotions or the
Mhm.
mind, because the mind's just
Yeah.
spinning. And so again, we're not going into the emotion,
Yeah.
we're going into the sensations.
Yeah. That is such an important distinction. And I think for a lot of people, they don't even realize, and I certainly didn't, that there was a difference. It was
Mhm.
all wrapped up, right,
Mhm.
into one. And I identified with my emotions and my thoughts. I thought that's who I was.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
very much so.
How interesting. Well, gosh, I feel like I could go on for days and we would find so many incredible things and topics, but I'd love to give a few minutes to hear about your free gift because I think that it's going to help a lot of people. The Reset Your Nervous System.
Yeah, so it's a PDF that includes a meditation, probably very similar to the one that
Okay.
you were talking about. It's a 6-minute meditation that allows you to just notice your sensations. And that's all we're doing. We're just noticing our sensations. And then the PDF has 10 really easy ways to regulate your nervous system. And so these are things that you can incorporate throughout your day that most people don't even know. A simple one that I love is paying attention to your lips,
Mhm.
whether that's licking your lips or touching your lips or even just bringing awareness to your lips. But um, that actually can release oxytocin, which is the love drug.
Yeah.
And by releasing oxytocin, we're coming back into more regulation and into the more of a present moment. So it's 10 very simple ways that you can start to work with your body very easily, very accessible, so that you can start to come into this present moment. And it's that example of, okay, all these implicit memories, the way my body stored my birth, my preconception, my childhood, my car accident, all of that's stored in my body, but none of that is actually happening right now.
Yeah.
So, and that's a question I ask people a lot is, what is actually happening right now? And so these techniques really bring you into right now, the present time,
Yeah.
in an easy, accessible way.
Right. And then we have the exercises that can release the stored energies so that we're no longer trapped by those experiences. Oh, I love this. I love this. And people, I really like to preface all of this work, especially if someone is new to it, by saying you may not have incredible changes in your nervous system overnight. And so I would challenge the listeners to take this, try it on, and just don't make it about expectations. Oh, I didn't feel more calm. Oh, I didn't feel this. I didn't feel that. And sometimes the goal is not to feel more calm or to feel anything in particular, but just to feel, just to create awareness. And so, maybe taking a tool like this and just saying, you know what, for the next 30 days, I'm going to do this meditation. I'm going to do these easy things, 25 of these 30 days, and just see at the end of that period, what do I notice? Because I think this work can be slow. It should be slow, right?
Yes.
And sometimes
Thank
people
you.
give up really quick. Like I did,
mean,
and nothing earth-shattering happened in the last 4 minutes. Oh, this doesn't work. Next.
but that's our society, right? Our society moves very, very fast pace. And that's actually part of trauma. Too much, too fast, too soon. And so to heal the nervous system, we actually have to do the opposite. The nervous system is a very slow pace. It's actually working with babies and infants is what taught me the most about the nervous system, is because I had to put myself at their pace to work with them.
Yeah.
Call it baby time, which is very slow.
I love that. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's like they were my best and greatest teachers as far as really tuning into nervous systems, is that it is this slower pace. And I was meditating, I think it was about 2 weeks in, 10 minutes a day before I had my first, oh, this actually might be working. I actually think this is helping. I'm going to keep doing this. So it took 2 weeks for me to notice the change.
And, since we're sharing that and you guys are now informed that that happens, you can, put your focus on, I'm going to make this commitment for the next 30 days. And at that time, I can see if there's been any shift at all. And if there has been, then wow, you've found something really helpful. Yeah. Well, this is so amazing. I'm so happy to know that you're out in the world doing this important work, and you guys definitely take advantage of this free gift and get to know Lesha a little bit more, and all the beautiful things that she's doing and helping people with their nervous system. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Lori. It was an honor to be here today.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and I look forward to bringing you the next interview.